Yes, very good, very good. Hey everyone, TDV here. We are at it again. Um, I am, let's see, it's still saying there's a glitch somewhere because it's just showing the picture still.
Mine says it's recording.
Yes, I'm looking at the live feed on YouTube. Yep, there we go. Good. It just popped up. Excellent. Hey everyone, TDV here. So we have a new construct um, with the passwords and all the good stuff. Just giving us a slower start, but we made it. We're here and we're doing it today. Our afternoon guest, our first afternoon guest, is an amazing person. She is a dynamic writer, director, producer, and educator. I've known Dr. Anita Cal, going on almost 20 years, 15, 16 years. Dr. Cal gave me my first crew position, hired me on my first job, my first film, behind the scenes. And just real quick, I'm gonna tell the story. Tell you what, I'm gonna introduce Dr. Cal first, and then I'll tell the story because I'm curious to see if she remember how it went down, and our beginnings were founded. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce you to Dr. Anita Cal. Please. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor for me to be here. And I say that because I just realized moments before I was about to log in that both of my parents graduated from HBCUs. They graduated from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And so I have a high regard for the HBCUs. So I'm deeply honored to be here. And, I'm excited to share whatever I can in terms of my knowledge and wisdom with you, and crazy stories with Professor Dowell-Vest, TDV, who was actually one of the best people that I ever hired in terms of her work ethic and her creativity and her personality. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, I know that our students, some of our students have their videos, their cameras up, and I just killed everyone's camera except for yours because to open, I just want the public to just kind of focus on Anita. And I think, with one or two people's cameras up, it looks like it's a classroom of 4, as opposed to the 31 people who are in this session right now, not to mention the number of people who are watching live on YouTube. During the Q&A, I will open everyone's videos that want to be on camera back up, so that, we can see everybody's faces who wants to be on camera. And also, before we get started, I want to welcome, if he's around, Keith Morris and Rachel Morgan. Keith Morris is on with us today. I'm very excited to say he's the film coordinator at Dillard University. He's on with us right now, as well as Rachel Morgan, who is the film coordinator at Lawson State University. I reached out to a handful of film faculty members, department chairs, communication programs at 25 different HBCUs. Last night, I was up until 3 o'clock. It just like a lightning bolt hit me. I was like, I need to invite my colleagues and their students, because we're doing a thing right now. We're giving students an opportunity to talk to professionals in a way that we really wouldn't have the access or the ability to do in a normal construct, right? We're all at home right now. And so I figured, well, it was a captive audience, may as well, strike while the getting's good. But I would love to have Keith Morris and Rachel Morgan open their mics and just kind of introduce themselves as well, and just say hello before we jump into the full mix of things.
Sure thing. Hi there. This is Rachel Morgan from Lawson State here in Birmingham, Alabama. We are as well trying to make the most of a unfortunate situation, ready to get through this thing so we can return to the classroom and also into movie theaters with everybody. But So happy to be part of this today, and thanks for the invitation.
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Hey, Keith.
Hey, how you doing? This is Keith Morris from Dillard University. I run the film program there, and this is my producing class. Some of the students and the rest will watch it afterwards because this is at a different time than our normal class, so it's a little bit of a shift for us. But we're so excited to be invited, etc., and talk producing if possible.
Yes.
Damn,
absolutely.
excellent. All right, so Anita, thank you so much again for being here. Why don't you go ahead and just to remind everyone of the format and flow. We take the first few minutes to allow our guests to introduce themselves, tell us who they are, what they do in the world. Then we unite the room by asking our guests, how has the pandemic affected them? The work that they do, you know, their well-being, their state of mind. How are you, basically, is the question. We don't want to just use you up for your jewels of wisdom and everything. You know, you're a human being who's enduring this time, and we want to connect with each other in that respect. Then I will kill my mic and we'll cut all the mics and allow our guests to teach us a thing. Take 10, 15 minutes to teach us you know, some lessons, some jewels that will benefit us all. And then we open up all the mics for Q&A, roundtable discussion, any sort of way the students would like to engage with our guest, and go from there. So that said, Anita Cal, Dr. Cal, my first, in 2003, I'd worked with Barry Bowles and Brian Hooks on a film in Virginia. They hired me as an actor. They cast me in a film called Nothin to Lose. And when I moved back to LA, they were crewing up for a film called Wifey. And I saw it in the trade papers and I was like, oh, I remember those guys. Maybe, you know, and I needed a job. I had a job, but I wanted a job I really wanted to sink my teeth into and get back into the industry. So I applied and I had an interview with the line producer, Anita Cal. And I was like, oh, I don't think that lady knows me. I don't know if she worked on Nothin to Lose, but I'm gonna go. And they were looking for a first assistant director. And I did not know really what a first AD did. I knew the theater world. And I figured if it was anything like a stage manager to a director, I would fake it. I went to that interview and I tried my best. And I lied and did all sorts of things to get this job on this film. And Anita just kind of looked at me, or Dr. Cal.
Go ahead. You can say it, Anita.
She looked at me, and I have to say Dr. Cal on this, because you gave me the look I know you give your students, like, I know you're not in here in this here restaurant in North Hollywood or Encino, wherever we were. And you went and told Barry and Brian that no, that person is not right for the job, but she's right for something. And you called me and said, yeah, you're not going to be the first AD. And Barry and Brian laughed so hard. They were like, TDV, you tried that? And I was like, I just wanted to work on the film. And you gave me the opportunity to be an art director. So I'm at home Googling what an art director does. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yes, I'm at home Googling. Went and did, worked with the production designer for the first 3 days, pre-production, getting our locations and our sets and everything ready. And on the first day of shoot, I won't call his name, but the production designer did not show up. And you and Lisa Washington y'all just kept looking at me. I never forget. I was painting something or doing, and y'all just kept looking at me. And I was like, oh, that dude ain't show up. You know, and y'all, you know, where have you seen him? And I was like, I don't know where he's at. I'm just painting this wall. And you offered me the opportunity to step in and be the production designer. I was like, yeah, I got it. Went home and Googled what a production designer did. And because you believed in me so much, I could not let you down. And I just worked my butt off on that film. And thankfully y'all hired me for another 5 or 6 films after that. And I want the students to hear that story primarily because that really is a lot of how it happens. You have to show up and do the work that you are there to do. You may be an actress, but you might have to be a set PA for a year or 2. You may have to do some other job that you feel like, well, this is beneath me, getting coffee for folks or making copies or, you know, or you may look up and get some grand position also, but you always have to be ready to do and to elevate, to do and to elevate. And those are lessons I learned from Dr. Cal. Dr. Cal, welcome.
Thank you. What a great introduction. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My background is I graduated from the University of Washington, where I got my bachelor's degree. I wanted to be a journalist, and I had been an athlete. It was really good in basketball. So I was covering sports for a local newspaper, and I was also working for a weekly. And I was working in the newsroom at the Seattle Times as an assistant. And then the next thing I know, just always being ready and present. I would bring chocolate chip cookies, my favorite, and I would just share them with every single person in the newsroom. And I didn't know one of the gentlemen I was sharing it with was the president of the newspaper. He would ask me questions. What are your aspirations? What books are you reading? And I always had my answers like, oh yeah, I'm reading Tess of D'Urberville's. And, I haven't read that since my sophomore year in high school, but I would just, not really paying attention. Long story short, one of the Pulitzer Prize winners comes in and says, "Who's Anita Cal? You're going places." And I'm like, "Where am I going?" And he's like, "The president of the newspaper loves you." And I'm like, "Who's the president of the newspaper?" Because I had no idea. And so I ended up getting an internship at the Seattle Times. Now, mind you, you guys, some of you said your communications. I was broadcasting, but I got an opportunity. They said, "Would you be interested in being a journalist?" And so for the newspaper instead of for broadcasting, and I had just graduated from the UW, and so I said, sure. Next thing I know, at the age of 22, I'm an LA Times reporter. So I got into their program where they had a mentorship program. I traveled all over the country. You were guaranteed a job at the end of the 2 years. And so that was the beginning of my journalism career. I did that for a few years. Saw what they were doing in Hollywood because sometimes I had to cover certain things, and got the bug, went to grad school. Didn't learn much there, but there was an Emmy winner there who kind of took an interest in me. I won some awards. I sold a script while I was in school. I was just one of those who never ever saw school as school. I saw school as a springboard to taking care of business for your career. So while I was in school, while other people were like, well, it's just school and I'm just kind of doing this play or this screenplay just because to go through the motions, I was like, how can I sell this? What can I write that's going to attract people's attention, that's going to get me a job when I get out of school? And I was lucky enough to write and produce a film without any experience. And it was called Kinfolks. And in my mind, it was like a Black Parenthood. And I got a deal with Showtime. And that kind of opened up the door for me to have a career in the industry. And I learned from Showtime that I didn't know business. A lot of times in school, when we're in communications and we're in film or we're in production, they don't teach us, A, that we're business people and that we're leaders. And I had no idea. So I had to get an attorney. What is an LLC? And I got a bad attorney and made a bad deal with Showtime, in where I wanted to be nice. So I was like, I want everybody to have first money ins with our investors so that if we get a deal, they get their money back first. That was horrible because Showtime offered me a deal for my script, paid me for my script. Then they offered me money to do pickups. I think it was like $600,000 to do pickups on the film, but the investors and the actors thought it was for distribution. So they kept suing. So I learned all of these things, and this is one thing I do. I'm also a professor. I teach at NYU, I teach at Syracuse University, and I teach at UCLA. And the first thing I do is I teach students about looking at themselves as leaders and business people, and then artists as well. Because the art, in order to get it produced or distributed, you have to be about business. And that's one thing I was never taught. So that's a little bit about me. I've written for Tyler Perry. I've written for TBS. I've written for Colors TV. I went back and got my doctorate because the business is so up and down and I wanted more stability. And that's another thing I like to share with students. Always have a backup if you're an artist / business person, because the business is rocky. And there are a lot of great, I call myself a scholar professional. And there are a lot of great scholar professionals in the business, especially at NYU. Some of my colleagues, one Sundance, one was actually filming and directing a CW show when the pandemic hit. And we thought she was crazy because she never gave up her classes. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, she went right back into teaching her 6 classes, which is crazy. And now she's doing some post on the CW. But she said with children and being an artist professional, she said, I'm not giving up the professor and adjunct professing money just in case something happens. And look what happens. Who could have predicted a pandemic? So
Right.
that's a little bit of my background, the past 18 years in a nutshell.
Wow. What have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on? Some of your more enjoyable projects that you've worked on?
I would say the most enjoyable projects that I worked on have been projects of my own.
Mhm.
So one would be Beyond the Badge. I just got great news about it. I shot it independently. I used my producing skills to put it together, got some traction, got into the Series Fest, which is considered like the Sundance of television. And from that, it's opened up some doors for me to meet executives, post-doctoral program. And one of the executive VPs of a huge network just called Friday and said, I already have a cop show. I can't use this, but I want to work with you. So do you have anything softer? And I was like, well, I don't really have anything softer ready to go. So she gave me the television mandates and we're working on that. But the reason why I like my own projects isn't because of ego. It's because like working with Teresa, I like working with Teresa because I know that I'm a good person. And that's one thing I try and teach filmmakers too, is know yourself. One thing I learned in the doctoral program, my doctorate is in organizational leadership, and I think that's what Teresa's getting hers in as well. And when you know yourself, you can work better with others. And what I learned is that I'm an assertive person, but I'm not an aggressive person. And I had a whole bunch of aggressive people on my team that weren't very giving, and that kind of stagnated my career because instead of working together, they were working against me. And I'll tell you this, Teresa doesn't remember this, but Teresa is one of the reasons why I got my doctorate. And she's one of the reasons why I fired my producing partner, because Teresa saw that I was miserable on this shoot in Sacramento. And she pulled me aside and she said, you know what, Anita, you keep playing Robin, but everybody in the world can see you're a Batman. And so as long as you keep trying to play Robin when everybody knows you're Batman, the people who are playing Batman are going to keep you down. And I started crying and she just told me, they're not for you. And so I had to spend $200,000 at Pepperdine for them to tell me the same thing Teresa did.
Yeah, I remember that time period. And it's in part not to get that not to get that story out of you, but it's in part why I asked, because I've watched your journey. I've watched your journey since that shoot in Sacramento, and you've inspired me as well. I mean, I think it's reciprocated. You've inspired. This is a love fest, y'all. This is about to happen. You've inspired me in return, because when I started looking at how you've transformed and become more assertive business wise, but you tied it to your learnings in your PhD program, um, that inspired me. I was like, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing the structure. I got the passion. I have the direction. I'm missing the structure. And the thing about Anita, you never, and you said this earlier, about your temperament. Your temperament is one made for leadership, and that you know how to encourage people. You know how to lift people up to get what you want out of them. And I want to peek in on one of your lectures at some point, because I know if it's anything what I experienced just being on set, I know your students are thriving. Okay, so I am going. Oh, no. Before I go forward, how are you doing during the pandemic?
I'm
How
doing
are you doing?
Me personally, I'm doing extremely well. I'm glad that I am teaching at like 4 different universities. So nothing's changed in my life. Everything is still consistent and still working. So I'm not having any financial issues, which I know is a complete blessing. But I'm also continuing to grow in my art form. So I'm taking a class, which I'm not advocating that you guys take this class, but I am advocating. It's called Script Anatomy. And what makes it so amazing is the owner is a Netflix executive producer, and every single person who works in her company is a working television producer or upper level writer. And why that's important is because when I went to my second grad school, if you notice, I didn't mention it, it's because no one in the department, except for the one Emmy winner who helped me as much as he could, he was in television, I was in screenwriting, was because none of my professors had been in the business. So they didn't know how to guide me to be successful. And I was the only one in my cohort to go into the business. There's a whole bunch of insider information into what you need to be a successful writer. And there's relationships that you have to build. You get mentors, et cetera. And so something like Script Anatomy, where you have writers who are working on Empire, who are working on Proud Family, who are working on Succession, and they're working right now, they can teach you what's currently happening in the industry and help you take your writing to a professional level. And so I'm doing that right now. And I think that taking a consultation from a working writer is also what got the attention of the executive producer who called me on Friday, because it was just so well done in it. And I had insights in even been in this business so long that I did not know, because I'd never been in the upper level circles before. So to that end, I'm doing wonderful.
Well, good. All right. Well, then I am going to kill my mic and I'm going to turn it over to you. Take about 10, 15 minutes and teach us a thing, Dr. Cal.
Okay, I'm going to teach you guys a little something. I'm not going to, are you going to give me an opportunity to share my screen? Let me see if I can get my little, no? Okay. So let me talk to you guys first. I wish I could see all of your faces. I can see a few, but how many of you know that if you're going into journalism or you're going into film, that you're a leader? I can see a few hands. Raise your hand if you knew that going in. And if you don't, you do now. Okay, I can't see spaces. So what I want to talk to you about is first, I'm going to give you a little insight that you are not going to have to pay $200,000 for. And one is, I always talk to my students about identifying the dysfunctions of a team. Because
you can share your screen now. Sorry.
Okay, let me see if it'll work.
Didn't want to interrupt, but you can go for it if that works for you. There you go.
So let's go. So so let me go back. So as a producer, or if you're an executive producer, and especially if you're a director, you're a leader of a department. So as a producer, I know how to lead people, but I was always a very, like for president of the class, I didn't say, oh, I want to be president. People came to me and said, we want you to be our president. That's a different kind of leader. So what I had to learn is we all know instinctively like what's wrong when we're working in a situation. And all grad school does is it shows you how to identify what's wrong. So here are some of the dysfunctions of a team that I want you to learn. As a leader, especially if you're producing or you're a director, if you have absence of trust, people can't trust your word. Can somebody pipe here and tell me what creates distrust? What makes you not trust somebody? Just open up your mic and tell me.
A past occurrence.
If someone's hurt you in the past, that's a good, I usually give people 2 or 3 chances, but usually if somebody's done something to you dirty in the past, you can trust they're going to do it again. And this is one thing I talk to my producers about, my young producers in school. I had someone come up to me, literally an MFA student, and said, Dr. C, you told us about the 5 dysfunctions. And the last time my producer did something untrustworthy and I hired him again. And I said, no, why'd you hire this person again? They paused. And I said, fear that you don't know somebody else or that you can't get somebody else. So now you are, and they were like, no, because they're really good and they speak my language because they can speak Farsi. But she pissed everybody off and she was so rude. But, and he had like 7 buts. I said, okay, here's another thing you can learn. Whatever comes after the but is why you should not hire them. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to hire, and I'm going to teach you how to recognize quickly what's going wrong with my team. If somebody causes dissension, and if they're distrustful, then you can't hire them. They can't be on your team, and you need to get on another team, get away quick. What else causes an absence of trust?
If a person has a bad character.
Bad character, be specific, unpack that.
Like if they are dishonest or they're rude.
Yes. If a person's dishonest or rude, right, that's going to cause distrust. If you're that person who's dishonest or rude, you're causing distrust among your crew. Okay. What are some other ways that a leader can cause distrust when you're working with that person?
Invalidating other people's
Yes. Invalidating other people.
suggestions or opinions.
Yes.
Trying
One
to
of the things
please
that I
you.
noticed, just one at a time, guys. One of the things that I noticed, especially in the business, as soon as you start working, when somebody's immediately putting down someone else, that's a red flag for you. So what you want to do is you want to identify these red flags. And you as a producer, one of the things that that I say when it comes to production, one of the most important things you can do as a production on the first day of production is have coffee ready. Why do you think coffee is a metaphor of whether you're going to have a good production or a horrible production? Anybody?
It helps people get ready.
It helps
Helps
people get ready.
ready.
Excellent. What else does coffee do?
Keeps them energized.
It keeps
Ready to
people
go.
energized. What else does it do at the very beginning of the day?
It wakes you up.
We already said that.
Warms your body.
It can start conversation between you and another person.
It starts conversation between you and the other people on the crew, right? So you're building rapport. So as a producer and your production team, a lot of times, even on the most professional shows, if they show up and there is no coffee ready, it shows that you have a dysfunctional producing team. Think about it. You weren't even organized to get coffee ready. And there are professionals that will show up and go, damn, this is going to be some bullshit. Excuse my French. They will say that because they walk and they're like, they don't even have the cup. Here we go. So these are little things because now you're not building trust with your crew that you're professional and you know what you're doing. All right. And I know I'm going fast, so slow me down if I'm not. Fear of conflict. Why can fear of conflict be a problem if you're a leader, if you're a department head, you're head of you're head of production, you're the AD, or you're head of the entire crew? Why is fear of conflict a problem?
Things might not get done if you don't speak up.
Things don't get done. Problems don't get taken care of. If you're a producer, part of our job as a producer, not only do we run the whole show, not only do we hire, not only do we look at the creative, we're responsible for making sure that the entire show runs smoothly. And if I don't handle problems immediately, then what does that do to morale? Now people are like, well, I went to Anita and I told her that so-and-so keeps showing up late. So-and-so's being really mean to the crew and she's not dealing with it. Now I've created poor morale, right, in the ranks beneath me. So one of the things that you should do when conflict arises is deal with it immediately. Now, how do you deal with conflict immediately? That all depends on your personality. Me, I'm very straightforward. I like to do the walk and talk. Like I say, hey, Teresa, let's walk and talk. Got a few complaints that you're showing up late. You're not treating people right on the set. And I just want you to know that I'm talking to you now because I hired you because I believe in you. And so what can I do to help you change that behavior? Usually people, they'll start hemming and hawing and, you know, they'll turn it around. I had a situation where I had a bunch of Teamsters pull me to the side and I didn't know what was wrong. I was like, did they not get their check? I'm going through my mind. They looked at me and said, why do you have so many white people on the set? They don't hire us. And I was like, oh, do I ignore this situation or do I just handle it with honesty? And I said, look, I hire people who are great for the job. I said, you know, it's like 60-40. And the best person that comes along, I believe in integration. And I said, I don't believe two wrongs made a right. And to be honest, not that many Black people helped me. When I said that, they were like, whoa, do you know we are friends till this day? And most of those people that work on that crew, Black or white, they all still work together. So I didn't run from it. I didn't hear that, oh, the Teamsters are looking for you. Let me just stay in my office. No, I dealt with it immediately. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. They said, you know what? We really respect you for the way that you dealt with it. Okay, so don't be afraid to deal with conflict. I had a student tell me a few weeks ago, he was like, Dr. C, I realized that my best friend who was my producer had a lack of commitment. And I was like, how? And he said, she wasn't returning my phone calls. And he said, so a part of me didn't want to deal with it. And then I realized that was a fear of conflict. So I asked her to go to coffee. And then I found out because she just graduated from AFI, she only wanted to deal with higher paying gigs. So she wasn't committed. So let's talk about lack of commitment, you guys. What are some signs that somebody's not committed to you, your project, or your dream?
Showing up late.
Showing up late, that is the number one, especially when you're working any job. When you're doing a production, it's a professional, you're a business, you're operating a business. You must show up on time. There are no excuses, not even a second late. Matter of fact, you should be earlier than everyone else, especially if you're a department head. What's another lack of commitment?
Inactivity.
Inactivity. People who do not follow through. You give them a task and then the task isn't done. That's a lack of commitment. That's showing you. That's how my student, he was like, I realized when you said that she wasn't returning my phone calls or my emails. That's a lack of commitment. Okay, what's one more?
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication. When people don't get back to you or they're not efficient, or if you're in a leadership position and you don't handle things immediately. I was privileged to have a billionaire be one of my professors at Pepperdine. And he said two things very important. I'm really good at communication, but I had a producer that I worked with who was horrible. And people would get so pissed off. They would be calling her and she would not return anything when it had to do with their money, petty cash, whether they needed equipment, she would just not return. And they would always come to me, then I would tell her, then she would get to them. And I could have been evil because she wasn't the nicest person. And finally I told her, because she didn't understand why morale was so bad. And I said, you don't get back to people and they don't like it. And ever since then, like this billionaire said, he does not take more than 24 hours. This is a billionaire. He doesn't take more than 24 hours to get back to somebody. Get back to people, communicate, answer what it is that they need if you can. And if you can't, say, you know what, I'm going to look into that and I'll get back to you. And then get back to them. If you don't know what it is, say, hey, I'm getting back to you just to let you know I'm still working on it. Okay, so communication is a big part of showing that you're committed. And then avoidance of accountability. Why is that a problem? Why is that a dysfunction? I'll give you an example. Oh, go ahead.
When somebody, why is that a problem? When somebody isn't able to take up for the things that they've done wrong, it's a problem. And they always try, it's a problem because the blame has to go somewhere. Somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do and it didn't get done. And
excellent. That's an excellent answer. Because if you say, if I come in and I say, Teresa, why isn't the set dressed? I don't know why so-and-so, I don't know why he didn't show up. I don't know why. Okay, if somebody didn't show up, A, you should let me know. There's a chain of command. So let the person that's managing you know that there's a problem. B, come up with the solution. You know what? So-and-so didn't show up, but I've already put in 3 calls. They're on their way. Okay, so take accountability for if you're working with somebody and they always have an excuse, you gave them 10 things they were supposed to do. They didn't do any of it. Okay, and they don't want to take accountability. Well, you were the one who sent it at 1 a.m. Oh, well, I don't know how I missed it. It must have went into spam. Oh, something's wrong with your computer. When they won't take accountability for issues, that's a dysfunction and that's a red flag for you that you need to be working with someone else. And then finally, someone who doesn't pay attention to results. They never get things done. They don't care whether you're on a deadline and you have goals and responsibility that need to be met. That's a dysfunction on a team and it causes morale problems on your set. If you are a producer, if you're working in any business in the world, if you do any of these 5 things, it's going to cause problems in your career. So if you see it and you say, what am I doing wrong? Am I creating a lack of trust in people? You can even implement these tools for your own self and your own career. So that is a lesson that you guys got. You didn't have to pay $200,000 for it. Do you have any questions?
Great segue. Great lecture, Anita. Yes, questions, people. Go ahead and let's ask our questions. We have about 7 minutes left on this call. So go ahead.
Hello, I'm Ronnie Madison from Dillard University. My question is, what advice would you give us to help? What would you say is the most important thing that we need to get jobs?
Ooh, the most important things get jobs. You mean in the industry or just jobs at all?
In the industry.
Oh, to get jobs in the industry, the best thing that you can do is you have to be in the industry. You have to be where the industry is happening. And any career that you go into, you have to have a mentor. I would say that my career at the LA Times, it went so fast because remember, the president of the newspaper, and this is the other advice that the billionaire gave me. I was like, how do you become successful? He said, when powerful people tell other powerful people about you and you deliver, that's how you become successful. And I was like, I had powerful people vouching for me, and I did not have that in the industry. I'm just now getting powerful people because of Script Anatomy, because of NYU, actually because of my professorships, and I'm working with working people. That's how I'm actually moving forward to higher levels, traveling in more rarefied air. So I hope that helps. Get yourself a mentor. Start sweeping floors. Do anything you can to get your foot in the door and be excellent. Like Teresa said, that is huge. I know a friend who literally just did, you can look it up, just did Dune. She had done 2 movies and was excellent. And she ended up being hired, much like I did Teresa, as the production designer because her friend couldn't take it. She was like, I'm busy. I know you've done 2 films, but would you like to do Dune with Jason Momoa and be the production designer? And she was like, what? But her father's in the business. So she had enough common sense to say, Dad, can I hire you? And he said, yeah. So then she took the job and did a great job. Next question.
What advice can you give to people who do not get hired for internships?
If you don't get hired for an internship, you can volunteer, and you can take you can go to temp services and get there's entertainment temp services, and you can go get a temp job. Start answering phones. I know a few people who started answering phones that passed everybody up because they were able to make relationships on the inside. Getting on the inside is very important.
Well, that might have to be our last question for today, for the session, because I do need to bring it to a close. Before I go, I want to share with Anita and with our faculty at both Dillard and Lawson State. We have a page on our PVAMU TV website where the students are able to share with our speakers and share, with our collective of mentors, who they are and what they do. This is the place where our students can, quote unquote, shoot their shot. So we're developing this page. My webmaster is working on this right now as we speak. So if I refresh it, there'll probably be a few more faces on here because we had an uptick of new people adding earlier today. But this site allows our speakers to come and visit the portfolios or the LinkedIn page of some of our students. I'm trying to direct most of them to use LinkedIn because it is a trusted site, but some of them are using their own website, their own portfolio site. Zenaria is actually using her YouTube channel because she is an aspiring broadcaster. She wants to be an anchor, news anchor at some point. And so she's put all of her clips of her broadcasting for PVAMU TV forefront on her YouTube channel, and that's where her link will take you. So we have more people that we're going to add and update to this site so that people like Dr. Cal and some of the guests we've had already, some of the guests can come to this page and see who you are and what you do. I'm going to give the link, the Google form, to have your link and your picture added to that page to both Professor Morris, Keith Morris, and Professor Morgan, Rachel Morgan, so that our students at Dillard and Lawson State can also have a profile on that page. My goal is to build a network. Let's forge relationships. This is what Dr. Cal is telling you all, like grad school or school in general. I say grad school, like y'all in grad school. Sometimes it does feel kind of, professional and grad school-ish, but even undergrad is where you find your tribe. You get your collective of people who are going to work in the trenches with you. And so what I want to do with that page and with all of our talks is to continue to forge relationships. You never know. You may have, where did Rodney go? Rodney, he's on here. Where's Rodney? Rodney Madison. Rodney Madison goes to Dillard. Hey, Rodney, you may pair Rodney with John Shea Knutson, who's a premier sound technician. He's going to be a great sound mixer. He's going to be a great director and editor also. But if I pair Rodney with John Shea and one of my students, who's that? Cameron Cooper from Lawson State, we can forge these relationships and build a wonderful collection of new filmmakers out of HBCUs. So this is where you can forge those relationships and put your URL on that sheet. Okay, I just went off on a thing.
Little quick things to say. Number one, you must have do your internships in the industry that you want to be in. Number two, make sure that you get yourself mentors. That's extremely important. And then number three, make sure that you have an opportunity, if you're in a creative medium, that you're actually being creative where you are with what you have, but try and find ways where you can get professional, like get somebody who's worked on a film to work on your shoot so that you can have professional looking work and reels that you can send out. So those are my three, I think, essential pieces of advice that I can offer. And when you're talking to someone, this is my last one, when you're talking to someone that you want to learn from, please don't say, can I pick your brain? Because after a while, that's more of a user relationship. Say, hey, I'm a young person. I know I can help you with your social media. Maybe research that person and see what you can do to also help them, because a lot of older people aren't great with the technology, and you can help them while they're helping you.
Awesome. Excellent. Dr. Cal, thank you again. Everyone, thank you all so much for tuning in. CaliGirl, I'm going to hit you up a little later on and celebrate you again. And I just appreciate you. I love you with the bottom of my absolute heart. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. Come back and join us at 4 o'clock today, everyone. We have Justin Simeon, creator and director, producer, writer of Dear White People. Both the films and the Netflix series and the upcoming film Bad Hair. He's joining us at 4 o'clock. Those of you who are joining us via the Zoom because you're on either our class list or you've been added to the list from either Dillard or Lawson State, please make sure your first and last name is on your Zoom account. The reason is when it goes to the weight room, I'm looking at people whose names are like one word, or even in this case, I got one person still in the weight room. I feel bad for them. Look, if you get stuck in the weight room, just look at it on the YouTube channel, because I'm not letting you in if I don't have your first and last name. And I have a full list that Professor Morris and Professor Morgan has given me, along with my colleagues at Prairie View. If you are not on that list, I am not letting you in without a first and last name that I can see and account for. We don't want a repeat of what we experienced last Thursday. I will protect my team, my students from that at all costs. So please put your first and last name on that so we can let you into the waiting room. All right. Thank you again, everyone. Anita, I love you. I'll talk to you all in just a few minutes. Come back at 4 o'clock. All right. Bye.
Bye.